It's time then for Swaminomics. As always, we've been getting you our expert, ET Now's consulting editor, Swaminathan Aiyar, with his perspective on the key aspects of this budget. Swami joins in today as well. Swami, this government is very keen to woo the big bucks that are perhaps waiting to enter India. Let's first talk about FDI reforms. Insurance to start with. There is a lot of buzz that FDI insurance could be increased to 49%, but restricting voting rights to about 26%. Do you think if that's done, it will be a half-hearted attempt? Is it a workable solution?
I think he can definitely go ahead on that. This will require legislation, and the party does not have a majority in the upper house. When it was in opposition, it was not very keen on this. So they will have to make up their minds on what their vision is. If you ask me, I would be in favor of increasing that limit. But they have to decide themselves that, if you oppose this when you were in the opposition just a few months ago, are you going to change now? So they have to work out the totality of their vision on where do they require foreign direct investment, or what is the totality of their vision for the insurance sector. So I would say you rework that totality of the vision, and within that, then you will be able to justify new legislation, and you will be able to push it through if necessary by a joint session of both houses of parliament. But if you are going to do that, I would say just focusing on FDI and insurance would be too narrow. It must be a much broader FDI thing in many more areas. You could include coal, you could include mineral prospecting, you could include many other areas and put that into one single bill.
It's often said in government, where you sit decides how you stand on issues, and perhaps that's very true for any government in power. But Swami, less than 24 hours from now, the railway budget will be presented. A lot of talk about opening up the railway for FDI. This is a sector that's absolutely under government control. We all saw what happened with the rail hike and then, of course, the partial rollback. What sort of reforms do you think are required for India's largest public sector enterprise before it can actually be opened up for FDI?
Let us go the corporate way. Let the railways be converted into, if you like, a holding company. Under it, there are a number of corporations. These can then sell, to begin with 10, going up to 25% equity to the public. I think there will be many takers. And once you get into that situation, railways will no longer be a political plaything. I mean, as long as you are presenting a railway budget every single year, there is a pressure to treat it as a populist thing. The moment there are corporations, there will be no rail budget. In any case, I have to ask, why on earth do we have a railway budget? If you go back to 1924, when it was introduced, the railway revenue was as much as the revenue of the whole government of India. So, all right, you had a special thing. Today, the railway revenue is hardly just a little more than 1/10 of total revenue. In fact, if you look at total sales, Indian Oil Corporation has double the sales of the railways. HPCL, others, State Bank of India have much larger revenue than the railways. Reliance Industries has 3 times the revenue of the railways. Are we going to have a budget for Reliance presented to Parliament and passed on those grounds? I mean, the whole institution of the railway budget should be abolished. The railway should be corporatized, and with the corporatization, a certain amount must be sold to the public. That, I think, is the right way to go. Then it will become depoliticized. It will become far more efficient.
All right, while you rubbish the railway budget completely, let's then shift focus to FDI and defense. All sorts of numbers have been thrown at us, 100%, 49%, 74%. What we're given to understand is that there may be an automatic opening up to about 49%, 74% on a case-by-case basis. Is that good enough for the top dollar to come in?
I do not think you will get a huge amount of investment at 49%. They will come only if you have some much bigger program within which you are fitting this. But if just within the existing system you say, you are welcome to apply and I will consider it. On that basis, I don't think you're going to get very much. I think I must add that if the aim is that we are going to become a major defense producer with the ability to export large amounts, if you get 100% FDI from an American company, that American company will not be allowed to export anywhere you like by the American government. So you might think that this company is now 100% in India. It's an Indian company. It will still be subject to a number of foreign directions. So if your aim is to become this large-scale manufacturer exporting to the world, then you have to work out very carefully what's to be done. You might then find that even if there is a 100% company, that 100% company would be obliged to have technology transferred to some other company, which will then have the ability to export. So I said a number of things have to be ironed out there. But if you merely announce a policy, you can come up to 49%, please don't expect that the whole world will come running to you.
Swami, let's talk about FDI and Pharma as well. Now, that's been through a lot of changes. It was a point of big debate between the Finance and the Commerce Ministry as well in the previous dispensation, and it's in a bit of a mess. Do you expect Jaitley's budget to bring about some clarity on that space?
I don't think that a budget should be the occasion for clarifying the FDI policy on pharma. I don't think that's the appropriate forum. But to take the larger issue, there was a fear that, a large number of multinationals are going to come and buy up all the biggest Indian companies. And then in some sense, Indian companies will lose control over the ability to produce cheap generic drugs for India. And then this will be a very serious problem even for Indian medicine. Now, I think that is clearly overblown. And there I think the fiasco of Ranbaxy is the best example. We had Daiichi coming from Japan. They paid a very fancy price. They bought Ranbaxy, which is our biggest company, and then they couldn't really manage it. And now they're going to sell it to Sun Pharma, an Indian company. So it's become clear that if at all you have foreigners coming in, it will be a two-way. You can also have a situation where there's a foreigner who is being bought out by an Indian company, as we are just seeing out there. Beyond that, when we have a situation where so many Indian companies have become multinationals, all of them are acquiring companies abroad. You cannot have a situation where you just say that, I can acquire companies abroad and nobody abroad will acquire a company in India. So in my view, unless there is very clear signs of some kind of collusive, non-competitive outcome of FDI, there should be no bar on foreign direct investment in pharma. If there is a fear of competition being eroded, that should be referred to the Competition Commission of India.
Swaminathan Aiyar, always a pleasure having you with us right here on ET Now. Swami, of course, will be leading our budget coverage on the 10th of July. Thanks for joining in, Swami.